Hello, dear seekers. This is Carrie. Welcome back to the Healing Corner. I would like to take the time to talk about mental health. The reason why I choose today is because May is the Mental Health Awareness Month. As you know, especially during a pandemic and just life in general, we all get affected by crises, by experiences that we're going through. So we really need to learn to focus on our mental wellness. If you're hearing me, I want you to start changing your perspective around mental health to start thinking about mental wellness. The reason why I want you to focus on mental wellness is not because there is anything wrong with saying mental health, but you have to be cognizant of the fact that we live in a society. The social construct around mental health has been characterized with a lot of labeling and creating stigma for all of us. Just like you focus on your physical health, you focus on your spiritual health, I want you also to know that mental wellness is very important. If you're not affected by mental health, I am sure you know someone that you love who has been affected by that. So let me ask you, what has been your process in thinking about mental wellness, or even having the courage to think about exploring therapy? I wanted to share a few things. As a clinical social worker or a therapist, I want you to know that there are many ways that can help you to get the best therapist for you. And the reason why I say therapist, quote unquote, is because therapist, it is an umbrella term. A psychiatrist, a psychologist, a marriage and family therapist, counselors, clinical social workers like myself, sometimes we all get called therapists. You need to do your research and find out what kind of practitioner you need to start working with. So, for example, a psychiatrist is a medical doctor. They can prescribe prescription, they can write prescription. I cannot do that. I am not a medical doctor. I can refer you to a psychiatrist. A psychologist usually has a doctorate in psychology. And there are many types of psychologists. There are clinical psychologists, research psychologists, social psychologists, and many more. A psychologist can do evaluation, they can do assessment, they can do tests, right? And they can also provide therapy. Then you have practitioners like myself, right? You have counselors, you have marriage and family therapists, and you have a licensed clinical social worker. My background is very eclectic, right? We have a base of sociology, psychology, policy, activism, right? And we usually look at the client from a holistic point of view. That's why I personally chose to go to school to be a clinical social worker versus psychology or going all the way to be a psychiatrist. For me, it was very important not to come from only the disease model. I wanted to work with my client from a holistic point of view, from the psychosocial perspective. Think about it. Our clients are multifaceted. When I see my client, they may come because they've been diagnosed with depression, but once you get to know them, you find out, well, they're not just dealing with depression, but they lost their job or they're not able to feed their children. So as a social worker, as a clinical social worker, I am not only diagnosing them with depression, I am using evidence-based practice and research to work on addressing the symptoms, addressing the issues that my client is going through or she's going through. But I also need to refer my client to find other services that can allow my client to find some kind of stability in their life. And that could be maybe referring my client to a church or maybe to the food bank, right? Maybe I know an agency that provides donation. These are things that other practitioners will never do, but I will do, my peers will do as clinical social workers, right? So it is up to you to fund your research. Remember, the same process that you follow when you need to make an important decision, I want you to do the same thing when it comes to the therapist who you feel will be a best fit for you. I encourage you to be really open, right? Because when you're ready for the healing process, you have to be open. Nonetheless, it doesn't matter how open you are. You want to make sure that the practitioner you're seeing is competent. They're practicing within the scope of experience or education, and that they treat you with dignity. Another thing that a lot of clients don't pay attention is you need a practitioner who is culturally competent. I'll tell you, that can be the difference between going to see someone who is going to re-traumatize you and going to see someone who understands that you have your own cultural baggage, you have wonderful experiences, you have challenging experiences that create and make you a whole person. Okay? So these are the few things that I want you to know. I also want you to know when you go see a therapist, it's not because you are weak. On the contrary, I always say my clients are the most courageous one and the most enlightened one. You know why? Because they realize that they are dealing with an issue. They have a problem. They have some kind of barriers. And they think and they're saying to themselves, I don't have to go through this on my own. A lot of people do not have the privilege to have good family support or good friend or a church or a good spiritual foundation. So they do rely on practitioners. They do rely on people like us, professionals like us, to guide them, to remind them once again that they are strong, that they are resilient, and with the guidance, they can do this again. I always ask my clients to think of me as that person who is walking beside them. I give them my hand and we walk together. When they feel like they don't need me anymore and they feel safe walking on their own, guess what? All they have to say is, I think I can handle this. And I will trust them and I'll give them the tools to continue to work on their own path. And the other thing that I want you to remember, you are not your diagnosis. Unfortunately, again, we have created a disease model that has created a lot of stigma. You are dealing with depression or anxiety or bipolar, but you're not bipolar. You are not a depressive person. You are not schizophrenic. You have to start to realize that your diagnosis is not part of you. It's something that you're dealing with, right? And that can help you to view it as something that we have to work on, not just something that's part of you. Because many of us, when we think we are our diagnosis, we feel like we are not well, we are not deserving. And when you think about a diagnosis, right, I want you to also know that it all varies. Some people have diagnoses or symptoms that are mild, moderate, or severe. So make sure that the therapy, the modality used, is tailored to your own needs, okay? To address the symptoms, to address your condition. Because I may have a client, they actually come to me only for maintenance, only for mental wellness, meaning they know that when they're stressed out, they can come to me and we can just unpack and then they're good. Then I have clients who have to come on a weekly basis, right? Because again, the condition may be a little bit more severe. Be aware of your cultural baggage, right, around therapy. I know especially for minorities, people from different cultures and backgrounds, we may come from a country, from a society where therapy is not allowed. Because they may say, well, you can pray, you can do this, and that can heal you. I don't think there's an issue with that. However, let's just talk about you having a depressive or a manic episode where your emotions are not balanced. Someone can pray for you all day long. It's not going to make it down. Let's just say you're suicidal, you're thinking about killing yourself, right? It doesn't matter how much you pray, how much another person pray. This is something that should be continued, but in addition to that, I want you to be open to the benefit of therapy. And remember, therapy does not mean that you have to take medication. Again, it is tailored to your own needs. It is tailored to your diagnosis. But I want you to know when you work with a therapist, anything should be addressed. Be honest, be open, and really be willing to put everything you have inside of you on the table so that the therapist can show up for you. Mental health means that you have to invest in your life. And this means that you have to invest financially, you have to invest when it comes to your time, you have to invest when it comes to showing up every time for yourself. Because I have some clients, they may not be compliant, but yet they know how to be healthy physically. So as you can see, the priorities are a little bit messed up. The same way you invest in your physicality, in your spirituality, you should invest in your mental wellness. I want you to think about this. When you sit across from a therapist, especially once you start working with that person for a long time, there will be emotions involved, right? Don't feel bad. Always address emotions, right? In my practice, we talk about transference and counter-transference issues between client and therapist. As you can see, you don't hear me say patient. I like to say client because sometimes patient create kind of the stigma of saying, oh, you're sick. That's why you're coming to see me. But as a client, you understand that you have the choice. You have the right to self-determination. You're coming to me because you feel like I can do this on my own. But at this time, I'm choosing Carrie. I'm choosing this therapist to help me through this process. Okay? So don't forget that if you start having feeling for your therapist, don't hide it. Talk about it. These are things that can be addressed and maybe a solution can be found. And then you'll realize that maybe these are things, there are experiences in your life that are leading you to start to change the dynamic between yourself and your therapist, and vice versa. Therapists also, because they work with clients, who knows what kind of feeling they should have. But remember, the therapist is not your friend. You're not supposed to date your therapist, right? They're supposed to guide you. They're supposed to be ethical, and they're supposed to protect you and be competent, right? So if a therapist has some feelings toward the client, maybe the client remind them of the mother, the father, the boyfriend, whatever that is, that therapist need to go seek help and to see, is this an issue that can be resolved or not. If that cannot be resolved, that therapist needs to refer you to someone else. And the same thing for you. If you have weird emotions, guess what? Not weird, just normal emotions. Address them. If you guys cannot handle it, cannot take care of it, cannot resolve it, discuss about being referred to another therapist. Okay? I am hoping that I gave you a little bit of the checklist, and there could be more. I have a long list like this, but because of time constraint, I don't want to end up with a 30-minute video. It's going to be too long. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read a little bit from my favorite book again by Mark Nepo, The Book of Awakening. So today is May the 15th, and he gives us a quote: "The risk to bloom," and then he says, "And then the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk to bloom." This is a good quote. I want you to think about that. When are you afraid to bloom, to take a risk, to put yourself out there? So you'd rather stay inside of you. I think when we explore therapy is having the courage to say, you know what? I can explore this on my own. I can try. I can give this modality the benefit of the doubt. And he gives us a few steps to focus on, and you can do this exercise at home. Try to identify what scares you most about being who you are in the world. And then as you meditate, imagine the God in you warning your fears open. So again, when you think of therapy, I know personally in my own practice, I always say, you come to see me as you are. I don't care about your gender, your experience, your race, your religion. You have the right to be who you are. Don't change. Come as you are. Therapy is not about me. Therapy is to empower you, not just with evidence-based approach, but also using your own spiritual foundation to help you get better, to help you regain that wholeness and that balance for yourself. Remember, when I say spiritual foundation, it doesn't mean that it has to be religion. Religion is part of it. Maybe your spiritual foundation can be religion. It can be God, it can be Jesus, it can be, again, meditation, it can be astrology. I love astrology. I use it as a spiritual foundation that not all my clients, only some of my clients can make connection with that. It could be running, it could be science, it could be anything that helps you to be whole and that helps you to guide you. Okay? So when I was thinking about therapy, I had to read this poem because it reminded me of the process that maybe some of us have to go through in order to step out and look for someone else, to understand that I need to talk to someone else. And by the way, especially in this pandemic, Don't just wait at home until you can see your therapist face to face. I've had the same issues with clients. There are many mediums out there to continue therapy. We can do online. It's called telehealth, teletherapy. It has the same benefit as going in person. So don't put off, don't postpone your crisis, your trauma, because you don't know if talking to your therapist via a video call will work. I guarantee you it works, okay? So the name or the title of my poem is Liberated. From my inception, I was free. From my Creator, I was given free will. From the divine, I was promised my right to live. From my mother's womb, I experienced beauty of taste, of sound, of what will be. I was born to be free. So why do I walk on this earth enslaved? Why these shackles around my ankles? Why these chains around my spirit and soul? How come I cannot feel my freedom? I do not feel liberated. My spirit, my soul, my thought, and my body have been captured, kept prisoner of my society, of my culture, and the mere human expectations. I am a slave. The birds are chirping in the blue sky. The smell of the rain and the wildflowers envelop my spirit. The arc of my feet are strongly planted on Mother's earth. Yet, spiritually, I belong with the angels. Can I reach from deep inside? Will I be able to claim what is rightfully mine? I call for freedom. I pray that I will be free at last. This morning, I woke up from the deepest sleep. I heard the chanting of the goddesses. Raise up, sister, they said. Stand within your power. Free your mind. Free your soul. Free your spirit. You were born free and liberated from all expectations. Heiress of your kingdom. Free at last. Free at last. This is how I feel when someone has been suffering with a condition. They have been enslaved by that sickness, right? They put themselves out there so that they can remember they are free. They can capture the freedom inside of the soul. So, dear seekers, this is a little bit too long than I wanted, but I hope you can share below and tell us what has been your process with finding a good therapist. And what are some advices you have for other people who have not experienced what it means or how it feels to work with a therapist? My dear seekers, please take care of yourself, take care of your loved one, take care of your family, and let the universe, the planet, and every being around you guide you in this process. Okay? Like, take some breath. We're going to take 3 deep breaths to just be in touch with ourselves. I want you to put your right hand on your chest and your left hand on your belly. We're going to take 3 deep breaths. You ready? Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Last one. Inhale. Exhale. Don't forget to like, to subscribe, to share, to comment. And if you would like any of my services, from therapy to natal chart reading to coaching, feel free to visit my website at www.Soul-AffirmingLLC.com. Okay, friend. Okay, seekers. Take care of yourself and happy healing. Happy Friday. Bye.